Geometry constructions 1 through 3. So these constructions are to construct a perpendicular bisector of a given line segment. So for line AB, we'd have to bisect the line with a perpendicular line forming 90-degree angles to it. The next one is to bisect an angle, AOB, AOB or BOA. So we have to construct a bisector of that angle. So measure the angle in half with a straight line. And then the last one is to copy a given angle. So to take angle COD and then make a copy of it over here. So let's start with the first one, constructing a perpendicular bisector of a line segment. So the thing to remember about your compass, and the thing you always want to remember, is that the sharp end loves points. Okay? The sharp end loves points. Whenever you're doing your constructions, just remember the sharp end loves points, all right? And then whenever two lines intersect, they create a new point. So whenever you create an intersection of lines, that's probably where your sharp end is going to go. That's a great rule of thumb, especially down here when we start doing these angles. But let's do perpendicular bisector. Now, interesting thing, if we want to cut this line in half, in order to do that, we have to make sure that our compass is roughly larger than half the angle, all right? And I'll show you why after we do the construction. So I'm going to take my compass, I'm going to measure it out to where I know it's bigger, or half the angle, half the line. So I know my compass is bigger than half the line. Now what I'm going to do with the sharp end on one of the points, I'm going to create an arc above. Try to make that as dark as possible so the camera can see it. And then I'm going to create an arc below. Oh no, it seems I'm crossing over my other construction down there. That's okay, we'll just ignore that for now. So an arc above and below on one side. Then I'm going to take my compass, I'm going to turn around, put the sharp end on the other point of the line segment. I'm going to do the same thing. Remember, I'm not changing the distance of my compass right now, and it has to have the same distance. And I'm going to put an arc above and an arc below. Oh, it looks like I could have not touched that other drawing. Let's get an eraser real quick and fix that. There we go. Other angle is left untouched. Okay, now I've got my arcs above and below. I see I've made 2 points, right? I've made 1 point here and 1 point here. All I have to do now is take a straight edge, line up those 2 points on the straight edge, and then draw a line which forms the perpendicular bisector. So now what I've done is I've created a perpendicular angle and I've perfectly bisected the line segment. We can even test this with our ruler. If we measure the line, we see that the entire line is 4 inches and my perpendicular bisector goes right through the 2-inch mark. So it's perfectly cut in half, and I can also measure with my compass. Put my compass right on the angle and I see it measures right at 90 degrees. So I know I did my construction correctly. All right. Now, and again, remember when you're doing your tests or whenever you're doing these constructions, to always leave your compass marks. Do not erase these marks when you're done. That's how I grade it. So leave your marks there, and this would be the proper construction of perpendicular bisector. So that's construction 1. Now let's go on to construction 2. How do we bisect an angle? Well, if you remember, sharp end likes points. We're going to take the sharp end, we're going to put it on the vertex of the angle. Okay? Oh wait, I'm sorry, before we go to that, let's talk really quick. What happens if my compass is not bigger than half the edge? If my compass is not bigger and I have it too short, I'm going to make an arc on the left side, I make an arc on the right side, and I make an arc on the left side. And those 2 arcs will never intersect, which means that I'll never be able to bisect that line segment. So when you're doing your construction, make sure your compass is set long enough, okay? So remember, these are bad, this is good, okay? Now, bisecting an angle. Bisecting an angle is pretty simple. We take the sharp end, we put it on the vertex, point O. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to measure off an equal distance on both lines of the angle. So I'm going to measure off an arc there, and I'm going to measure off an arc there. Or some people like to just put one arc that goes through both angles like that. I like this method too. A little bit easier to look at. Now, once I've done that, I need to realize that I have just created 2 brand new points. 1 point is here, 1 point is here. And remember, the sharp end of our compass loves points. What we're doing now is putting our sharp end on each point, and very, very similar to our perpendicular line construction, I'm going to go ahead and extend this a little bit more. I'm going to put an arc over here inside the angle. Right, and then I'm going to take my sharp end, put it on the other point that I just created, and make a similar arc. Now, where those arcs intersect, I now have a third point that I've created. And just like the perpendicular bisector, I'm going to take this third point, line it up with the vertex, draw a straight line using my straight edge, line it up as best as I can, and I have now successfully bisected that angle. We can test this through measuring with our compass, or yeah, our protractor. Excuse me, our protractor. So if I measure this angle, right there. So I measure our angle, I see we're at just above 60 degrees, and then if I look at my bisector, it's just above 30 degrees. And if I zoom in really close, you can see how accurate this is. It looks like our angle is 61 degrees. You can see that up here. It's right at 61, or maybe that's 62 degrees. Yeah, 62 degrees, maybe 61, right? And then if we look at this line here, it looks like this angle is right at 31 degrees, right in between those two marks. So very, very accurate construction here. All right, so that's construction 2. How do we bisect an angle, right? So quick recap, step 1, draw an arc through both sides. Step 2, take those points and then draw 2 arcs out into the middle, then connect the vertex with that intersection. That's our angle bisector. Now the last one, we're going to reconstruct an angle over here. Now, interestingly enough, to reconstruct an angle, the first thing we're going to start off with is a ray. Okay, so we've got to reconstruct point OC, right? So I'm going to go to point OC, and I'll do this reconstruction in blue. Put that and that. And now I've essentially got this line. I'm not too worried about whether or not the lines are the same length, because I'm more concerned about the measure of the angle, not the measure of the lines. When we get into polygons, then we'll worry about the length of the line as well as the length of the angle. But right now I'm just worried about having this baseline. So once I've done that, I now have point O, and roughly over here somewhere I have point C. Okay? Now I'm going to take my compass. And remember, your compass loves, the sharp end loves points. I'm going to put the sharp end at point O. And then I'm going to make an arc that goes through both the top and the bottom of the angle. Right? Very similar to what we did above. Now, keeping my compass set for the same distance, I'm going to create an identical arc over here on this ray that I just created. I'm going to put an arc that's definitely big enough to pass through both the top and the bottom. All right? Now, once I do that, I take my compass, I'm going to put my sharp end and my pencil end on these 2 points that I formed here. So the 2 points that I formed on this existing angle, I need to take my compass and measure the distance between those 2 points. Right? So I'm going to put the sharp end on the bottom because that's how I prefer to do it, and then take the pencil end, set it right about there, and then I'll go ahead and make an arc just to ensure that it's correct. That's probably a little bit too big. I'll drop it a little bit more. There we go. That seems more right on the dot. Okay, so that's the distance that I want. Okay, then I'm going to take my compass set for that same distance, and I'm going to go to this bottom point right here, which mimics this point here. And then I'm going to draw the same arc. What I've done is I've reconstructed both this line, this arc, and this arc. That's what I have over here. Now, in order to finish the angle, all I have to do is connect O to this point, and then I have the angle. So I take my straight edge, go ahead and put a dot there for my point so I can see clearly where I'm going with this. I'll line up the 2 dots and then draw my line. And I've just reconstructed the angle. Again, I can use my compass, I can use my protractor to measure the accuracy of this. So I'll go ahead and line it up on this first angle. It comes out to about 28 degrees. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing there, about 28 degrees. And then here, line this up just right, and I've got about 28 degrees. Excellent. So that was a successful reconstruction, so I can now finally properly label this as also COD as well. So that's construction 1 through 3. Again, how to make a perpendicular bisector of a line segment, how to bisect an angle, how to copy an angle. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you in class.